you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond Moore
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire. I'm Jimmy Murphy. A very eventful weekend in the hockey world, Pierre. Lots of Atlantic Division teams. We're going to get into this in a bit. Jammed up. I mean, completely dead heat tie with their records right now, all at 500. So we'll talk about that in a second. But a lot of stuff going on. And one of the biggest things, I think, if not the biggest thing tonight in the NHL, is the return of Steven Stamkos to Tampa Bay. And we will have your good friend Dave Randorf on shortly to join us here to discuss Stamkos' career in Tampa Bay, what will happen tonight and how he'll be received. And also just where the Tampa Bay Lightning are at this point, Pierre, because they're a team that all of a sudden seems to be looking for their identity. They're kind of a bit up and down, where they had a good start and now they're kind of going oop, oop, like a roller coaster, just like the rest of the Atlantic Division. But Pierre, how was your weekend, my friend? I noticed you are now back up in Mont Tremblant, huh?
I am back in the North Country, yes, and it was cold this morning when I went for my daily workout. It was cold outside. It was really cold outside. I'll tell you that right now. But no, it's beautiful today. It's magnificent outside. What a great ski day it would be if there was snow on the mountain. It would be amazing. My weekend was good. I saw a ton of college hockey. I saw a lot of NHL hockey. I saw an amazingly good 2-2 tie. You know, they say, oh, you know, we can't have ties in hockey. The game I saw Saturday night at Matthews Arena between Northeastern and University of Maine was as well coached, as well played, as well officiated, as hard hitting, as fast as anything you could see. And what's wrong with a 2-2 tie? I know Maine won the shootout, but that had overtime. It was 65 minutes of fury. It was awesome. It was really good. What is wrong with that? Can you tell me? If Ryan Leonard doesn't perform like magic tricks on Friday night in Western Michigan versus BC, that game ends up in a 2-2 tie probably.
Yep.
But he performs all these high wire trapeze acts. He's an amazing player, drafted by Washington, and eventually he gets a shorthanded goal to win the game against Western Michigan. But imagine if that game would have ended in a tie. Nobody was going to be mad.
No, not at all, Pierre. Look,
Anyway,
honestly, I've never been a fan.
Speaking of great college stuff, I just had the most amazing call before I came on this show, and I had to cut it short. Tony Granato called me. He was on his way to go do the Chicago Blackhawks game tonight, and we're always thinking about Tony because of the battle he's going through with cancer, and he's doing really well right now. I wanted to share that with our listeners, and his energy, his passion was so good. He was supposed to go fishing this weekend. He was calling me. I said, how cold is it? I said, it's pretty cold, and he was going up to one of the Great Lakes to go fishing with one of his buddies. He says, I got this coat for Christmas and I'm all ready. And he says, I can't do it. I got too much work going on. So I said, don't worry, you'll get your chance. So anyways, he's feeling good. And I wanted to share that with our listeners.
That's great.
You're talking about a passionate hockey guy. Tony's such a passionate hockey guy. It's awesome.
We got to get him on the eye test soon enough. We'll get him here.
Yeah, we will.
And Pierre, I'm with you. Look, I've never been a fan of the shootout. It still hasn't grown on me. I don't like it, plain and simple. And I'm fine if they go back to ties. I won't mind it. I know people say it's like kissing your sister, but I don't think it's that way. As long as the game is good and it's exciting and it's good hockey, who cares?
One of the biggest sports in the world, I think, is called football, but it's not the North American football. It's soccer that we call soccer.
Yep.
Don't they have 0-0 ties? Don't they have 1-1 tie? They do, right?
There's a great time. My
tongue firmly planted in cheek. It doesn't seem to bother anybody.
No.
It just seems like their sport keeps growing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
My team yesterday, Liverpool had a tie 2-2, and it was a comeback tie. They were down 2-1, and they scored in extra time. And all the Liverpool fans seemed pretty excited. They treated it like a win. So I don't mind it.
All I can tell you is it's 65 minutes and you can't decide the game. I think because I think now that I've thought about it a lot, we've had since 2005, 2006 to go over this stuff. I mean, now that I think about it more, it does a disservice to the guys that play or the women that played in their game. Yep. It does a disservice. Yep. So you're gonna count on 3 or 4 guys to make the difference, whereas all these guys are bleeding and getting hurt and blocking shots and taking hits to make plays and winning races and sacrificing everything for the good of a game to get decided on a skill competition? I don't think so.
No. I mean,
I don't think so.
What was the?
This is probably the most outspoken I've ever been on this podcast network, by the way. And it all came from this college hockey game that I watched on Saturday night, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
That was freaking awesome.
And what about Pierre? Like, what was the Olympics? Was it Forsberg who scored that OT winner?
Yeah, that was in 1991 or 2. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was against Canada with the old.
It was a shootout, right?
Yeah, it was a shootout, and it became a postage stamp in Sweden. It was a postage stamp.
See, I've heard people say they want to do that in the NHL and have the Stanley Cup potentially decided on a shootout. I don't ever want to see that. Just keep going in overtime until somebody's.
Are you prepared to put somebody's name on that?
No, I am not. But I've heard fans say.
Who never said that to you? I will tell you this, and you can tell them they can call me. That's moronic. Yeah.
I don't want that. I don't want it. I don't want something that big to be decided on a shootout, on a one-on-one play. It's just, that's the one thing I don't like about soccer too, is the PKs. When they go to, you've seen the World Cups get decided on PKs. Christ, the Colombian goalie paid for it with his life way back.
Hey, Jimmy, I have a question for you, by the way, because you listen to everything that I say on this show, and I'm usually very firm but very fair, right? I think you would say. Yes. I try to be transparent. Jimmy, did I ever once say that the New York Rangers were not
I'm glad you brought this up.
Passing team? Can you tell our listeners so that it's actually out there? Because I've done it on the radio, I've done it on this show, I've done it with numerous other people, including the PR staff of the New York Rangers who listen to our show and know exactly what was said. Can you tell? Did I ever say the Rangers were bad?
No, you said the complete opposite, Pierre. In fact, you said it here, and you said it on with Mitch Melnick. On his show on TSN 690, you said they are the best passing team in the NHL. So the complete opposite of what some, and I'll just be blunt and say it, morons were saying online about you. And look, I'm glad you brought that up here because it's just something that I think you and I have done our best to kind of dance around and not really call out and be polite. But sometimes you just got to call a spade, and you got to do it. And enough of this with people just creating stuff for clicks or, to start rumors just for the sake of starting a rumor. Like, when did it become okay to just change facts? Like, it's on record. You've said it on this show and you've said it on another show. And yet somehow somebody still has the gall to say you said the complete opposite. And now, it's turned into a little firestorm and you're getting a lot of hell for some stuff that you didn't do. And this isn't just you. I see it happen with a lot of people. It's happened to me. It's happened to other reporters as well. Hey, just because you disagree with something or you don't like someone doesn't mean you can just change reality and change facts. I'm sorry. I don't know when this became okay to do, but it happens in sports. We see it in politics now. Enough of the fact changing. A fact is a fact. How you want to respond to that, how you want to give an opinion to that, that's your choice. But you can't just flat out change a fact. So, I don't know. I don't have names of these people who did this, Pierre, but you alerted Mitch and I to it, and I looked into it, and I had my fun with them. I'll put it that way.
Well, who's really good, like you and like Mitch, is Dave Randorf down in Tampa. Longtime friend and workmate at TSN when we were together for almost 11 years, and had a lot of great trips with David all over the hockey landscape. So he does an amazing job with Brian Engblom down in Tampa, Jimmy.
Really, let's get him on right now. We'll get back to our other topics later. So let's discuss Steven Stamkos back in Tampa Bay for the first time as a Nashville Predator. And Dave Randorf, the longtime play-by-play man, is joining us here on the Eye Test. Do we have Dave?
Yes. Can you hear me loud and clear?
I can hear you. As long as we can hear you, we're good.
All right, buddy. Yeah.
Yeah, good to have you, Dave.
Camera here. I'm trying to get it going here, but I can hear you. How about that? So as long as you can hear
your amazing voice.
Can you hear the dulcet tones of David Randorf's voice?
I know, right?
That is a professional broadcaster right there.
Yep.
Well, some of Pierre's early games at TSN were with me, and he'll have to tell you the story one time about our trip to Flin Flon, Manitoba.
Oh, he has.
That was good.
He has. Yep.
He actually wrote about it in Sports Illustrated.
I did. Mr. Itz, we were there. In fact, they threw this is one thing I'm very comfortable sharing about that trip. David and I were up there, And the first goal, the Flin Flon Bombers, I see this thing come, a projectile go across the ice. I'm like, what the heck was that? And all of a sudden I see that projectile getting pulled by a rope across the ice, and it's leaving a blood trail. And it was a moose leg.
Totally true story. Completely true story. They apparently, when the Flin Flon Bombers, who, by the way, are one of the oldest teams in North America, and a lot of guys have played up there, most notably Bobby Clark, but when they need to rally the boys, they throw a recently shorn moose leg out onto the ice. And we were sitting with a local guy because we were actually getting the lay of the land the night before the game we were covering. And he was telling us about all the local stuff that goes on in this barn that they play in. And this moose leg comes flying out, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you about the moose leg." And Pierre said, "How can you forget to tell us about the moose leg?" And that's what he wrote about it in Sports Illustrated.
Oh, and Jimmy, I'm not kidding you. There's like a blood trail across the ice.
Yeah.
I'm like, did they just shoot the moose? Like, how did that show up out of the blue? Nowhere, out of nowhere.
Yeah. If you've ever thought that Pierre is maybe slightly exaggerated in his story, I'm here to tell you this is not an exaggeration. This entirely happened.
Oh, man.
Good stuff. Well, Dave, let's get closer to where you are right now. Steven Stamkos back the first time. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Steven Stamkos stories and memories told today and have been already. But I go back to one where I just, to me, defined who he was, what he meant to the Lightning, what he means to this game. So let's play this clip right now from inside the bubble where you were, Pierre, as well, in the 2020 Stanley Cup Final.
Collared by the Lightning and sent back ahead, and escaping back up the wing is Stamkos. He scores! My goodness, right out of a storybook, and it's 2-0.
Is that one of your favorite memories of Stamkos, Dave?
Well, there are lots even before. This is my 5th season broadcasting Lightning hockey. So that was obviously before it was the TV voice of the Lightning. But I remember watching it. That was the only game he played. In fact, he didn't even make it through that game, as Pierre will remind you. He only had a few shifts. It was the only shot on goal he had. There was a lot going on with everybody at that time in the bubble, with COVID-19 just coming out from under it. It's been publicized now that Steven's wife had also suffered a miscarriage during that time in Toronto. There was lots happening for him, and it still gives me chills to even talk about that. But, that is the biggest, most important goal he ever scored, because it was, near the end of winning the first Stanley Cup, his first. But there's been a lot. I had the privilege of calling his 1,000th point and his 500th goal. And in fact, I don't have much memorabilia in my home office here, but I do have a picture of that 500th goal moment. And he was kind enough to write a very personalized message thanking me for an awesome call. And it was really nice. So he is a class person on and off the ice. He exemplified that and demonstrated that yet again today when he spoke to all the media that was there at the morning skate. He's got to be, his stomach's got to be in knots. As experienced as he is, and everything that he's been through playing, he's been in the spotlight since he was a teenager. But today's different. This is a different situation where he's coming back to the only place he's ever known as a pro. And he's been so central to this organization getting the heights that it now is at. They've lost a lot of players from those back-to-back cup years and all these great teams that they've had in the last 10 plus years here in Tampa Bay. But this is, and with all due respect to all those guys, Alex Colon, Andre Palat, all those guys that played a part in those cups, this is different. This is a new level. And the video tribute tonight against the Nashville Predators, I can only imagine, will be an extremely emotional moment for him, for the players on the Lightning bench, for the coaching staff, and certainly for the fans in attendance, which will include myself. So, it's going to be a special moment for a guy who will have his number in the rafters and will, in my opinion, quite likely have a statue out front of Amalie Arena when he's done playing.
Hey, Dave, one of the things that Mr. Vinnick, who's still part of the ownership group for the next 3 years, even though he's sold most of his shares, one of the things he's been so good at is cultivating this family relationship. I remember talking to you before you went down there, and that's one of the things I remember telling you is just what a great family guy Mr. Vinik was and how he created that family embodiment with the Lightning. With Steven gone now, how much does the family fabric change in Tampa with the team?
Well, I do remember you telling me that, Pierre, and I also heard that from many people when I got a lot of people sent me texts like yourself saying, "Hey, congrats. That's a great place you're going to, great organization." But everybody said the same thing. You now work for the best owner in sports. And this wasn't hyperbole. I heard it from many different people. And Mr. Vinik has certainly, exemplified that throughout my time. I got a phone call from him when I first arrived here. You know, how many play-by-play guys get a phone call from the owner to welcome you aboard? It's zero, except for here. We actually met the new owners today. There was a big staff event. I work for the team, so there was a big staff event this morning, and Mr. Vinik was on the stage with the two new gentlemen. And to answer your question, Pierre, it is maintained. It's very, very important that the Jeff Vinik's Lightning shows excellence on and off the ice in this community. And I've seen it firsthand since I now live here full time, year round. What the connection this hockey team has with the community of Tampa Bay. It's not just because of the winning. Certainly that helps. They are a sexy team. They have won a lot. But they also connect and they give back to the community, especially as recently in the last few weeks. We've been through a lot here with a lot of storms, 2 storms, Helene and Milton, and $3 million came out of Jeff Vinik's pocket himself. $1 million came out of the new owners just today. Wow. So for hurricane relief. So it was very important to him to sell to the right people. He's still going to be in charge of the team for at least 3 years, as you said, Pierre, but I don't expect anything to change. And as for the players and how they include everybody, I'll give you an example. I don't mind telling you that when Steven played his 1000th game for the franchise, there was a after game, post game reception at the JW Marriott across the street, and I was invited along with my broadcast partner Brian Engblom. We were included. We were thought of because everybody within this organization thinks that everybody plays a part in the success here, and Steven certainly exemplified that and kept that going. And I think, with the succession of him to one of his closest friends, Victor Hedman, Pierre, you'd be hard pressed, wouldn't you? And Jimmy, you'd be hard pressed to think of another team that could go from a presence and a captain, the caliber of Steven Stamkos, as seamlessly as they have here in Tampa to Victor Hedman.
Boy, that's really well said. I think that's really well said, and it's so appropriate, Jimmy, what Dave just said about going from Steven to Victor. I've known Victor since he's been 15 years old. I knew Steven when he was 15 years old. I mean, these are special guys. They're winning guys. They're family guys. They're team first guys. It's amazing. I remember when Victor Hedman broke in and the late Wayne Fleming was coaching in Tampa, and he came up to me once. I was doing a game down there with my old partner, Gordon Miller, and Wayne grabbed me and he goes, "What makes this guy so good?" I said, "Well, I gave him X, Y, and Z." And he goes, "We're seeing little bits of it, but we haven't seen it yet. But we think when we do see it," and now he's only 18 years old. He's a kid. He goes, "We think he's going to be special." And eventually, but it took Dave, you would know, you were doing games then too. David probably took him 2 to 3 to 4 years to get to where they really thought he could get to. I mean, It took a while. But I just, Jimmy, I wanted to add one more thing that Dave was talking about the JW Marriott. This is the part of this business that people don't realize. Mr. Vinik owns a Marriott hotel on one side of the street. He owns a JW Marriott on the other side of the street. And he, obviously controls a building right next to the JW Marriott and the Marriott. And Dave talked about being invited to that party. I would tell you this right now with full confidence, having been in the league 35 years. That's as good a hotel as you'll ever stay in as a visiting team. And the staff is so appropriate in both hotels, right, David? I mean, it's amazing. I find it amazing how professional they are.
That's amazing.
It just makes that whole trip to Tampa unbelievable. It really does, Jimmy. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, the whole area around the arena, even in my short time here, I'm in year 4 here, and it's exploded around here. There's yet another hotel down here called the Edition. It's right across the street, and it's all because of what the Lightning have done and made the downtown a destination. Whereas, I can remember doing my first game down there. You had the rink, you had a couple of hotels, and you had a whole bunch of parking lots, and there was nothing going on downtown.
David, don't forget the Octo Bar. I took you there. Don't forget.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. Another true story. That's right. Yeah, yeah. But it's really gone off here, and it's really grown, and they've really built something here. It's funny. I still to this day have lots of friends in Canada who say, so do they really like hockey down there? They really know hockey? I say, just stop, okay? Canadians have an arrogance about hockey that they think they're the only ones, and I'm a Canadian, obviously. That they're the only ones that know it, the only ones who truly appreciate the finer. I said, just here's the one stat I always trot out: the Lightning have won 3 Stanley Cups in the time when not one of the Canadian teams have won it once. So just stop with is this a hockey town? Because it is, and it will be on full display tonight with the main storyline of Steven Stamkos' return.
That's so smart.
Let's not forget, guys, too, though. There's a ton of transplants from Canada and the Northeast there. It's not like, they're just completely void of hockey knowledge when this team started there. You already had some hockey fans living there. But, Dave, I want to ask you, when you look back on how Steven developed as a playoff player,
you broke up there, Jimmy. Can I ask you to re-ask that question?
Yeah, sure. So I want to know with Steven Stamkos, in terms of him developing as a leader and more of a good playoff player and understanding what it takes to win the cup, how much did that run to the conference final in 2011 and in 2015 help him develop?
Without question, helped him, helped Hedman. There aren't many players that were around for all of those things. I think those would probably be the only 2. A couple other guys were with the 15. And listen, they still look at 15. I know John Cooper still looks at 15. They led that series 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
They thought they had it, and it got away from them. And that was a lesson about how hard it is to get those final 4 wins. And I'll take it one step further in terms of development and what it really took to get over the top and to the top of the mountain. They won their first of back-to-back cups in 2020. The year before, they lost in the first round. They'd won 62 games, tied an NHL record before the Bruins broke it a couple of years ago. 62 games, and got swept by the Columbus Blue Jackets, who really had nobody, and they got swept. It was an embarrassing kind of tail between the legs situation, and they, instead of firing everybody and making trades, they collectively looked themselves in the mirror and said, we've got to change how we play. We can't be like a men's slow pitch league that's swinging for the fences and putting up, eight goals a night, because they could do that, no problem. And that's how they won 62 games. They were just lighting up the scoreboard, and they were just run and gun. And then they ran into the playoffs, and Pierre's coached in this league. He knows what it takes. And I firmly believe, and it's talked a lot still about to this day here in Tampa Bay, without that sweep, without that crushing loss, 100%. They may not win back-to-back cups. To truly understand what it took.
Yeah, I'm going to build off of what David just said, because I couldn't agree with him more. But I will say this. Columbus had 2 things that Tampa didn't have. They had David Savard, who was a fearless shot blocker, an unbelievable defender and matchup guy for Columbus. And eventually he found his way to Tampa. It's amazing how that series helped him get to Tampa, which helped them win those cups. And then the other thing they had a guy named Tortorella coaching them. I did all the games in that series except for one. There was 4 games in that series. I did all of them except for one. And what happened was game one. What happened in game one was Tampa was up 3-0. Tortorella made 3 significant changes. Changed the forecheck, changed the offensive flow through the neutral zone. He jumped their defense into the rush. And the third thing that was really important. He just says, if we can't go tape to tape in our own zone, chip it in the neutral zone, and we're going to create 2-on-1s. So that was all on John. John Cooper and his staff never adjusted. And I'm just telling you, the 2 things that they had that Tampa didn't have, they had David Savard as a matchup guy, and they had a real good coach in John Tortorella. And I think Cooper, ever since then, has been a different and a better coach because of that. And I agree with Dave Randorf 100%.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And isn't that interesting? And yeah, you're right, Pierre. They were up 3-0 in the first period of game one. And everybody, even if you weren't watching that game, you're looking at it on your phone going, well, that's of course, that sounds right. And then the House of Cards came in after that. And one last thing about Savard, yes, he ended up in Tampa Bay with the Lightning, and 2 cups later, he has the assist on the game-winning goal against the Montreal Canadiens in Game 5 that won the Stanley Cup in a 1-0 game.
Yep.
It's amazing how things kind of line up the way they do.
It really is.
You referenced, Dave, just how important Steven became within that community there. And I thought it was so impressive, when the Hurricanes hit earlier this month, that I saw an interview somewhere. I'm not sure where it was. I apologize. I can't attribute it to anyone, but he was just, so concerned, so overwhelmed with emotion for his his people, his former fans there in Tampa. And you could just tell the sincerity there. I'm wondering, was there a moment when you started to realize that this kid was becoming embedded in that community?
Well, with all honesty, he was embedded before I got here. You could just tell. The standard, people talk about the standard and the culture of a winning organization. Well, that standard was set from my eyes, and having traveled now with the team on the road and being around them all the time, that standard was set every single day by 2 guys, Stamkos and Hedman. Yep. And I'm talking about all little things, all the details, and just conducting yourself professionally and caring about who's around you. There's a gentleman who works at the arena, and Pierre's probably met him. His name's Kelvin Anderson, and Kelvin, he's always at the building, and he kind of runs the show in the parking lot, the back of the building.
He's the boss man.
He's the boss man. He's the best. And he even talks about how Steven is just so aware of who is around him, not just in the locker room, but in that building. He knows all the people, all that work there on a regular basis on a game night. And just the level of give back is amazing. So that's why it was so, I tell you, boys, it was emotional time around here when the news broke that he wasn't going to be back. And then it didn't take long for Nashville to sign him. And it was so interesting today, this morning at morning skate. It just dawned on me when we were standing there. There is kind of a lounge, a VIP lounge just off the hallway where the 2 players' dressing rooms are. And they call it the Ashley VIP lounge. And that's where they were going to hold the media availability for Steven, because not everybody would be able to fit into the Predators room. So we all go in there. Steven comes out and he's standing in front of a Nashville backdrop wearing his Nashville hoodie. And it dawned on me that how ironic it was that it was slightly over a year ago at the beginning of training camp prior to last season. He was standing in front of a Lightning backdrop in almost the identical spot where he is now standing, telling everybody that he was disappointed that there's been no contact in terms of extending his contract. And that made headlines everywhere in Tampa Bay, certainly in Canada, and all around the hockey world. Like, he came out, he was ready to say that he was disappointed that there'd been really no meaningful contact about a contract extension, and that he was going to have to play this season without an extension and play out his final year. And here we are a year later, and here he is standing in the same spot wearing a Nashville hoodie. And it's amazing how things change. But the cycle was incredible how it all happened. But it was emotional around here. I got stopped everywhere I went. People they wanted to talk. They were emotional about it. They were upset. How could this happen? So, we can analyze it. I'm sure you guys probably did once it happened on your show. But we can analyze it all you want. But the bottom line is his legacy is set. Whether or not they improve 5-on-5 and whether or not he has another 40-goal season, it doesn't matter now. Tonight is a night to celebrate what he meant to this organization on and off the ice, the fact that he was the one to hoist the cup twice. And listen, he was their best player in the first round last year, too. He had a great year, a 40-goal season. He was a key guy in getting them into the playoffs again for a 7th consecutive year. Down the stretch, he scored a number. Remember, they didn't get in the playoffs until April, which is very un-Lightning-like. And leading the way wasn't Kucherov at that point. It was Stamkos. And he was their best player, albeit in a losing cause, against the Florida Panthers, winning faceoffs, playing physically, and, of course, scoring goals. So he gave it right. What I'm saying here, guys, he gave it right to the end, even if he didn't know that the end was going to happen on July 1st.
You know, when you look over the Steven Stamkos reel of success in Tampa, Jimmy and Dave would know this, and Jimmy, you know this from 2011 when Steven was first starting out really with Tampa, quite frankly, when they took the Bruins as far as they could. Steven Stamkos is a gift in Tampa that keeps on giving because he's the guy that created the standard. He's the guy that taught the young guys how to be Tampa Bay Lightning players. He's the guy that created this work habit that's second to none. I used to go there. And Dave knows, like, I like to go to the rink for practice. And I worked with Dave a lot, and we would go to the rink for practice a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing you know or knew whenever you were in Tampa and Stamkos was there, that he would bring in the A effort. And if you didn't follow, you probably weren't going to last long in Tampa. So he's the gift that keeps on giving because now Kucherov does that. Now Braden Point does that. Now Anthony Cirelli does that. You know, and David knows exactly what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Steven is an amazing human being. I can tell you that from World Juniors, from different events I've been with him in different parts of the world. He's an amazing, amazing person. He really is.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you said. And in terms of the detail and the working, and every single morning skate, every practice that I saw, whether it was morning skate or otherwise, that shot from the right side, from the left side on the power play, he practices it every single. That doesn't happen by accident. Every day, 15 to 20 pucks will be fed to him, and you don't even hear it. You don't even hear it. It is with a tiny little click. You know those when you hit a golf shot and you barely hear it, and it just pops off your 5-iron. That's what it's like. And he was doing that every single day. And when a team is lucky enough to land the first overall pick, this is how you dream it ends up. A guy who comes in, who owns your record book, sets every scoring record you have, which he has, and ultimately leads you to the top of the mountain. Well, he did all that and then some, and not only in the games, but in the community as well. So it's a huge check mark. And you're right. Lightning fans were lucky to have him, and they know that. And they're going to display their affection for him tonight.
Jimmy, we got to let David go because you got to work. David,
I got to go down to the rink.
I can't. I'm going to be watching you and Brian Engblom.
No, you're not. No, it's not. It's on ESPN Plus tonight, which I got to say. I know. I'm a little disappointed by that, but you listen. I've been on the other side. You and me both, buddy. I've been on the national side.
So here's what I'm going to do, though, and you know that I do this with you. I'm going to be bugging you all night from what I see on the air in terms of the play, and you just get back to me, okay?
Okay, buddy. Yeah,
thanks, Dave.
You do that.
Friend to do this. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
We appreciate it.
Pleasure being on with you guys. I told Pierre, Jimmy, that I've been listening a lot, and he got me going. I'll tell you, but the first episode I listened to was your awesome conversation with Scotty Bowman, who it was. I know it was a while ago, but that was my entry point into your podcast. And wow, what a riveting conversation it was. And you could tell he really enjoyed it. And the listeners certainly really enjoyed it.
That's a hell of a way to be introduced to us. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Scotty, for that.
I'll be texting you, David. Have a good night. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Be well.
Tell Brian we said hi.
Will do.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Dave Randorf joining us here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
Okay. Let me tell you one story. I'm going to cut you off now. It's about Randorf, and this is a testament to Dave Randorf's talent and his character. It's really important. So in 2005, I'm dating myself, but there was a nuclear winter and there was no hockey.
Right.
Gordon Miller and I, TSN sent us over for 2 months to Europe. We started in Sweden. We ended up going to Slovakia and then the Czech Republic. And finally, we ended up in Austria, in Innsbruck and Vienna. And when I was in the Czech Republic, I was staying at the Marriott Hotel right near Venceslav Square, where I usually stayed in those days. And I get a text message. And back then, it wasn't an iPhone. It was a BlackBerry that I had. So I get this message, and it was from Dave. Dave was over working with us. And he said, "Can I meet you?" I said, he thought I was out walking. I said, "Yeah, actually, I'm in the lobby of the hotel. For sure you can meet me." And so it was late in the afternoon, and we didn't have anything for a couple of days. And I'd already been to practice and done my work. So we sat down, and we had a nice Czech beer. And we talked about career goals. Mm-hmm. And, I was not going back to coaching, even though I had some options and some offers. because I had a young family, and I told my wife I did not want to move them every 3 or 4 years, which is what happens when you're coaching. And I didn't want to be divorced from my family in terms of me being in the city where I was coaching and them being, in the town that we chose to live in, which back then was Montreal. And so Dave and I talked, I'm going to tell you, it was probably an 8 or 9 hour conversation. And it wasn't about hockey. It was about careers and family and friends and establishing how you want to live your life in this crazy business of hockey and television and professional sports. And it maybe was, and I've told this to Dave before, I've had a lot of those conversations over time. That may have been one of the most impactful conversations I ever had. And if we put in a good session in the lobby bar at the Marriott in Prague, but it was well worth it. And it's a lot of those life lessons that I talk about with mentorship.
Yeah.
Dave and I exchanged so many back and forth. It was fruitful. And I'm always grateful to Dave because of that.
Yeah, that is great. You know what I caught there too, that I liked what he said there at the end when, we were kind of upset that we wouldn't be able to hear him or watch him tonight. He says, hey, we've been on the other side too. So we've stolen games away from regional broadcast. So I can't really knock that, right? I thought that was classy for him to say that.
That's how he is.
Yeah.
He's really good at his job. For fans out there, if you do have the package and you want to watch, a broadcast whenever the Lightning are playing, listen to Dave and Brian Engblom. They're outstanding. They're one of the better regional broadcasts out there. And I'm telling you, I watch a lot of games, and they're right at the top of the food chain when it comes to that. They're very, very good.
Did he ever do radio before, Pierre?
He did. Oh, yeah, he did lots of radio in Vancouver in particular. I first got to know Dave, I want to say, probably the mid-'90s. Dave was just starting at TSN, and they had a Western office and studio, and then obviously what was going on in Toronto. That's why people make fun of it, TSN, the Toronto Sports Network, but it really was for the whole country. So I think I've known Dave over 30 years and did a lot of games with him in a lot of different places, and I'm so fond of him. When he knew he had a chance to get to Tampa, I said, dude, get on the plane and get down there, because that's the best owner you could ever work for. It's the best owner you could ever work for, and you got the job.
He gets to work with Espo sometimes too, right?
Espo's great. He's such – you know what? I think he's fantastic. I have so much fun. Like, every time I see him, he makes me laugh. But I don't think you realize how – Jimmy, like, you're a Boston guy. Phil Esposito was so special in so many different things in terms of hockey playing and getting that franchise to Tampa.
Oh, yeah.
You look at the stuff that he's done in his career, it's pretty amazing. I know people look at the Ranger stuff as a management person. Throw that out. Everybody has stuff. But he was amazing.
Oh, yeah. No,
as
I
a
know
hockey person that's influenced the big, broad picture of the hockey world, very good.
I urge everyone actually to go research that and look at the history of that team and how they got there, because he was an instrumental part of that. But man, can he tell some stories too? Whew.
Yeah, they're good. They're all good. They're fun.
Laughing nonstop. Anyhow, all right. Of course, we've got our Q&A lined up here, so we'll get to that in a second. But Pierre, one thing I didn't get to ask him there that I'll ask you then is, you're looking at that Tampa team right now. All right. What to you needs to be fixed? Like, do you think a lot of it is just getting used to Stamkos not being around? It's still a transition period, or is there something else there that has nothing really to do with Stamkos being gone?
It has nothing to do with Steven. It has to do with being reckless with the puck. They're too reckless right now. They're too wide open. I think the coaches see that. There were times too when they won the years they won the cups too. They were like that a little bit. Then they would crack down, at the playoff time. Yeah. And I can speak to that from experience. We were a little like that in Pittsburgh. And then Scotty said, nope, we're cracking down. And as soon as we crack down, the results happen. And I did
that in Detroit too.
Yeah, and I would say that, well, the left wing lock that people now give all different names, but let's be fair, it's just a left wing lock. Yeah. Or you can call it a lock system, whatever you want to do. That was Scotty and Barry Smith and Dave Lewis that created that, and they probably took that from some Swedish guys, because Barry Smith had such a huge encyclopedia of European tactics and skills. And so there's a lot that goes into this, but here's what I do know. Cooper became a better coach after Tortorella embarrassed the Lightning in 2006.
Glad he brought that up.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry.
2019.
Yeah. And that in 19, right? Was it 19 or 18?
It was 19 because I remember saying
It was
how
19.
much the Bruins lucked out because they didn't have to go through Tampa to get to the
So that was number one. And number two, I think all the players learned a valuable lesson that were part of that. And the management learned the most because you know how Dave Randorf correctly said we had to change?
Mm-hmm.
That's when they brought in grinding guys like Blake Coleman. That's when they brought in Barclay Goodrow.
Third line, remember?
Yeah. Yanni Gord was part of that
Yep.
when you think about it. And then obviously they lose Yanni because of expansion. But if you look at it, management knew we just can't win with slicksters. We got to get some,
like
ground and pound guys.
Yeah, kind of like what Edmonton's been through.
Yeah. Yes.
Same thing.
So I'm a fan of what they've done. I'm a huge fan of the owner. There's a lot of stories I wish I could tell you, but I'm not going to, just out of respect. But and they're all good. There's nothing nefarious about them. They're all really positive, but I think they're better served not being told publicly.
All right. Well, let's get to our wonderful sponsors, Betway, first, and then we'll get over to this Q&A right now because they are lining up there. Of course, Betway is the leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct. Go with Betway. You can go right there to that QR code in front of you if you're watching now on YouTube, or if you're just listening, like I said, go to betway.com. Remember, you must be 18 plus and always gamble responsibly. And as I try to do every show, I haven't won them all, but I'm just trying to make you gamble responsibly and look at some smart bets for you, not just easy ones. I'm going a little sentimental today, though, Pierre. So let's line it up here for the sick pick of the day, brought to you by Betway.
It's time for Sick Picks, brought to you by Betway.
And I mean, how can you not go with Steven Stamkos to score a goal today, Pierre? But I'm going to go one extra step. I'm going to get a little cocky here. I know 2+ goals at plus 550 right now. You'll get, if you bet Steven Stamkos to score 2 goals or more, plus 550. So that means if you bet 100, you win $550. So go over there now. They've got tons of props. They've got all the updated lines. Go to Betway right now and make your picks there. That is my sick pick of the day. All right, let's get to the Q&A. A to Z me. Can someone please explain to me how Jack Guy got the only penalty after being attacked by 2 players last night? Is it just a bad rep thing for Wi-Fi or just total incompetence by NHL refs? Pierre, I'm going to let you answer this because I want to go grab the tweets that I got from Dave Jackson, our good friend, former NHL referee and ESPN analyst who has been on this podcast with us. So you give your reasoning. I want to say what he said last night to this.
Well, I don't agree with his reasoning because I know he's going to defend the referees. Am I right or wrong?
You are correct.
I am. So I'm not even. And you know what, Dave, if he's watching, Dave knows how much respect I have for him.
Totally.
I have a ton of, but no, I don't agree with that. And here's what I don't agree with. You can give Arbor Jack Guy a penalty, but if you don't give Nick Sealer a third man in, then what's the definition of third man in? That was a graphic display of third man in. And Sealer got nothing. I don't buy it. No, I agree with A to Z me. I totally agree with him. That was, and I'm going to be taking one step further. Carter Sandlak's father played for me, Jimmy Sandlak, and I have a ton of respect for the dad, and I think the world of the kid. I knew him when he was young, really young. And I'm just telling you, Jimmy Sandlak was a really good player when I had the privilege of coaching him, and the kid's worked his way up to the NHL, and he's a real competent official. But I don't agree with anything that happened in that situation last night. And Nick Sealer, at worst, should have got a minor, but probably should have got kicked out of the game for being third man in.
Okay, so I'm just telling you what Dave's reasoning was. I'm with you, Pierre. I don't agree with how it went down either. I don't like it at all. But he said, by rule of the law, by rule of the rules, the third man in is only applied when a 5-minute fighting major is being assessed. If we call it in scrums, you'd have to eject someone every time there was a scrum at the net. So that was his reason.
Okay, so here's what I'd say. You have 2 willing combatants. In fact, Couturier dropped his gloves first.
Yep, exactly.
Before Jack Guy did. So that's why I'm not buying anything they're selling. This is a cover-up that both players, Couturier and Jack Guy, should have got penalties because both of them had their gloves on. The fact that they didn't trade punches, What does that mean? I can't control that. Neither can the referees.
Yeah, I'm
But
with you on that.
Sealer was third man in.
Completely.
Third man. That's all I'm going to say.
And by the way, too, I know there's been a lot of questioning on Jack Guy, and kind of he's been getting bounced around by media and fans lately. I thought since he was scratched, Pierre, I think, and since the coach called him out, I've liked his response for the Montreal Canadiens. I think he's still learning, he's still making mistakes. Don't get me wrong, but he's not trying to do too much out there. He's keeping it much more simple. So I give a lot of credit to him.
We agree. Totally agree.
Right.
Yep.
Next question. Alex Evanowski, do you think the Penguins truly know they can't compete anymore? They seem to be in denial from top to bottom about how realistic their chances are to make the playoffs, let alone win another cup. Well, they're never going to tell us that. I'll tell you that. But I mean, Pierre, you've been a coach, you've been on the bench, you've been among teams that have been struggling. They're not going to say it, but they're human. I got to imagine all those thoughts are going through their head, but they have to do their best to block it out and just play.
Yeah. Management's going to have to decide how they want to play it. There are going to be some hard discussions that are going to have to happen there. They're going to have to happen on the goaltending side. They're going to have to happen on the defense side, and they're going to have to happen at the center ice position. They got some hard stuff to deal with. Hey, I'm going to just say it, and I'm not trying to pick a fight with anybody. When they did what they did with Jake Gensel last year, that was their decision as a management team. They chose to do that. Okay? They chose to do it. Nobody made them do it. They chose to do it.
Are you comfortable? Because it's ironic this question was brought up because I was texting you Saturday and I was bringing this up and I said, I just see so much mediocrity coming for that team. And I said, they have a chance if, I'm not urging any team to ever tank. I'm not saying that. But if things were to go really south and they went into a rebuild, as I pointed out to you in a text, Pierre, you could get McKenna. I mean, you never know. You could be in the mix for McKenna in 2026. And, I don't know if you're okay with what you said to me, but you don't think that's going to happen.
I don't know. I all I know is what was said when the new management team took their position there. And that's why they went out and got Erik Karlsson.
Yep.
That's hey, look it. If you really want to do that, why are you adding Erik Karlsson?
Exactly.
And it's not a knock on Erik. Erik's a really good player. It's not a knock.
It's a compliment to him. You're saying, why are you adding a star player if you're
why are you doing that if you don't think your team's going to win? Like, why would you tank when you added all these high profile guys? And then, Winnipeg couldn't sign Rutger McGuire, or he didn't want to go there. I don't know what happened. Then you bring him in with all the fanfare and hoopla. They did that. We didn't do it. You didn't do it. I didn't do it. They did it.
Him down.
And they sent him to the minors.
Yeah.
So the lesson is manage expectation properly. Make sure you're getting the right player that's going to fit in your group. And don't say that he's going to start by playing on Sidney Crosby's line.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay?
Yeah. And be realistic. That's the biggest thing. It's hard. I know it's hard for teams. I know the money that's involved and everything, but in the long term, it's better to be realistic.
I think they're going to have, at some point, they're going to have the same internal conversation that Glenn Sather had to have with Jeff Gorton in New York. Because they're going to say, we're spinning our wheels. We're doomed. We're never going to have the trust of our fans. How do we fix it? And, man, did Jeff Gorton and John Davidson to start it, they fixed really what was ailing. And the amateur scouts,
what I respected the most. The letter to the fans was amazing.
Phenomenal job in New York with the Rangers. They did a great – they're exhibit A of how to do it. And I think Jeff and Kent are doing that in Montreal. I truly believe that. And I know people are going to say, oh, you got Anaheim wrong. I don't think it did.
No, I don't think it did either.
I think Anaheim's going to keep getting better. I do.
Yeah.
I think Verbeek's doing the right things there. I do. And I think Cronin's doing the right things there. There's some guys that will be eventually moved out. That's okay. That's part of rebuilding. But if you look – like, you think Leo Carlson's not a good player? No.
And I get what people are saying right now. They've had some stinkers lately. But listen, hey, you went into MSG. You only lose by a goal to the New York Rangers.
Yeah, and it's back-to-back against a ticked-off team, the New York Rangers, and they put the boots. I get it. Like, Jersey's going to do that to a lot of teams this year.
Exactly.
You know? But like, who had it in their pool that Nico Hischier would be the leading goal scorer in the league at the 10-game mark?
Not me.
Nobody did. Come on.
Yep. Cole
He's a
Caulfield.
really good player, but it shows you he accepted his role early in his career to be a shutdown guy. And now all of a sudden, because they have more assets around him, he can go be an offensive guy too.
Exactly.
So, anyways.
All right, next question. John Smith, gentlemen, thoughts on 31-year-old McCabe's 5-year deal with the Leafs? I thought a 3-year deal would have made more sense.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
No, I like the deal. I think it's perfect. There was absolutely nothing wrong with it in my eyes. I think it was a perfect deal. He's a highly rated guy in Toronto, but I mean around the league, I think he's a bit underrated. So maybe that's why people look at it that way. But that was a good signing in my opinion.
In negotiation, there's give and take on both sides. He's an American kid, drafted by Buffalo in the second round, captain of a World Junior team in 2013 that won the World Junior gold in Russia. Then he goes to the Chicago Blackhawks and gets severely injured. And I can tell you, I've done a huge amount of due diligence on Jake McCabe because we were very interested in trying to get him signed in Ottawa as a free agent. And so the injury scared a lot of people, not just us, scared a lot of people away from Jake. Toronto had the courage to sign him. So he's taken less than market value for his abilities and services so that he gets more years. And I think part of that is really positive for Toronto. It shows that an American kid's not afraid to play in original six city in a Canadian market, number one. And number two, he sees how good their team is. Right. And so he said, you know what, the grass might not be greener in another market. And I've done really well in my career, and I want to win the cup.
And the new coaching change.
I mean, just everything. Jake's he's good. I don't have a problem with that deal at all. In fact, I told Jimmy, I texted you right away. I'm like, that's a really good deal for the team and really good for the kid.
Yep, for sure. All right, next question. Randy Workman, with these deferred contracts, will there be a fear of separation between the haves and the have-nots? The smaller teams cannot afford these deals.
Sorry.
It is what it is.
Sorry. That's the way it is.
100% true. It just, it's not going to change right now. So.
Sorry. Draft better. Draft better. Draft better.
Yep.
You know, the Montreal Expos were the smallest market in Major League Baseball. They drafted unbelievably well. They created this development system down in the Dominican. Everybody wanted to go to be a Montreal Expo from the Dominican, and they got all these great players.
Exactly.
You know, eventually they had to sell them off or whatever, but they did. But I used to tell back in, I'm going to say late 90s, early 2000s owners about, you know, because that's when there was no salary cap. And they'd say, well, how do we get this going? I said, you got to have better development. You got to have better drafting. You know, stop spending ridiculous amounts of money on depth players. Let kids take those roles and pay them nothing. But
nobody thought about that then, though, Pierre.
But
that's
I'm just telling you, there were like 5 owners that I talked to and gave counsel to in those years. I'm just telling you.
Yep, I know. All right, next question. GB, who do you think will be a better offensive player in the NHL? Mishkov or Demidov?
Too early to tell. I can't tell you that.
Too early.
I don't know.
But I do think Demidov is going to make a lot of Habs fans forgive them for not getting Mishkov. That's the way I'll put it.
I think they're both. Mishkov's really good. Demidov's really good too. I mean, let's see what Demidov does when he gets to the NHL, because right now Mishkov is playing great. Deserves a lot of credit.
Very well. All right, next question. Randy Workman, will anyone challenge Mishkov for the Calder?
It's a little early, but I think yes. I do. I think yes.
Gauthier gets going.
I think yes, but you know, we thought Connor Bedard would win it last year going away.
Yep.
I thought Adam Fantilli would have beat him out. I did. I said it before the season started. But Fantilli got hurt and Connor Bedard got hurt.
Yeah.
So you never know from year to year. I mean, the one thing I'd say is there's a guy playing defense in Montreal named Lane Hudson. Let's see what he does. Don't count him out. I still think Cutter Gauthier is going to go on this unbelievable tear. We'll see what he does. Let's see what he does.
All right, next question. Steve Lash, Pierre, it's still early, but you talk frequently about concern, fear, and doubt among teams about getting into the playoffs. Any teams, in your opinion, where concern or even doubt has crept in yet?
Oh, yeah. 100%.
I'd say the team that I'm closest to, the Boston Bruins. I don't know about fear of
They're not fearful. They're not fearful yet.
I think they're fearful about how deep they can go.
I don't think they're doubting it, but I think they're a bit concerned by the consistency of their play.
Yeah.
Once those three things kick in, then you're doomed. Like, okay, I'll ask you straight up, Jimmy. How do you think they feel in San Jose?
I think they feel like they're still very much in a rebuild, but they need to build a better culture support system around these young kids because it's not the culture they want them to develop in.
Correct. There you go. So they're already experienced at almost 10 games. They're concerned. I don't think they're fearful yet, and I don't think they have doubt. So once those three things kick in, concern, doubt, and fear, then you're in trouble.
I'd agree. All right, next question. Chris Blue Shirts. Hey, guys, great interview with Dave. Question. I love the Laffy extension. I think Igor is re-signing as well. What are your thoughts? Thanks. Let's go Rangers. Thanks, Chris. Yeah.
I told Jimmy right away. I contacted Jimmy right away. I'm like, home run.
Yeah.
Great deal.
He's going to be worth way more a few years into that.
What people need to understand is most of these negotiations for these players are done on comparables. They're just on spreadsheets, and it's just numbers. And, if you want to do a comparable on him, and Jimmy, you can go look it up right now. I'm just doing it off the top of my head. I think the Lafreniere contract is almost identical to Svechnikov down in Carolina. And if you look at the numbers, put them side by side, if you look at the numbers year to year, and I know one's before the other, Svechnikov is before Lafreniere, you'll see that they're almost similar, Jimmy, in a lot of ways. And so I think the dollar value is really close on both of them too. So maybe the Rangers presented that as a comparable, and maybe, the agents for Lafreniere presented Brady Tkachuk or some other power forward that's young. But I would just say that the one that stood out to me is Svechnikov, because I think that's a comparable on Lafreniere.
Yeah, Svechnikov is at 7.7, Lafreniere at 7.4, so very, very close there.
Yep, there you go. So that's how I looked at it.
All right. And that's all we have, I guess. That's it for the questions today, but it is 5 o'clock already, so I know you got to get ready for our good friend Mitch Melnick, Pierre, and Pierre, you're going to be doing a lot of broadcasting around the Montreal area this week. You want to let the listeners know?
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm doing last night I started the post-game shows for the Canadiens. I'll be doing that tomorrow night, the Seattle game, Thursday night, the Washington game, and then Friday and Saturday, I'll be involved with the American Hockey League broadcast from Laval. So I'm really excited about that. I love the American League. I had the chance to work around it a lot, and I think it's a tremendous league, and the players are awesome, and they deserve a ton of respect. Providence is playing in Belleville on Wednesday. Then they're in Laval on Friday and Saturday afternoon. Jimmy, I'm telling you, that's hard. And those guys do that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday afternoons all the time. It's an unforgiving league. So I'm really excited about that. And then I'll do the Canadiens post game from Pittsburgh Saturday night.
Beautiful.
So, yeah.
By the way, Belleville just signed Malcolm Subban back there, so good for him. Pierre, quickly, I just got this text from my friend Jeff. He was listening and talking about that question about rebuilds and adding culture around that and doing it right. I can't believe I didn't bring this up. Connor Bedard's comments recently about this has got to change. We got to do something about it. How do you take that right now? Is that a shot across the bow to management to do exactly what we're saying right now, or is that just frustration?
I think it's some frustration. And, they've got good leaders there. Like Nicky Foligno's a first-class person. Jimmy, you got to know him in Boston. I've known him a long time, his family. I have so much respect for the entire Foligno family. I was coaching when his dad was still playing. So
yeah, the apple didn't fall far from the tree for sure.
Yeah, those kids were well raised, and their late mom was fantastic. I had a chance to meet her at a bunch of different things. So I had a lot of respect for the family. So then you got Taylor Hall there. You got a lot of, Bertuzzi's there. You got some good people there. Seth Jones is there. There's some really good people. Ryan Donato's a really good person. He's a really good person. So I get it. I know what they're trying to do. I just don't think they have enough time. They just don't have enough talent.
Well, how would you respond to him doing that if you're management or you're the coach?
Well, I think subtly you got to bring him in and say, look, you're playing in a major market. You're going to be one of the go-to guys here with the media. How do we want to be perceived as an organization? And you're a big part of it. You know, do we want to be perceived as malcontents and guys that aren't pulling the rope in the same direction, or do we want to be perceived as a winning group that knows they're going through this right now and they're turbulent times, but the walk to the top of the mountain is really difficult. You know, there's peaks, there's valleys, there's floods, there's wind, there's snow. It's hard to get to the top. There are all these obstacles you got to go through, but eventually you're going to get there if you all stick together. And I think that's, as a management team, you kind of have to have that kind of discussion. You don't yell and scream. It doesn't do anybody any good.
Good. But I do like his passion. So that's a good sign right there.
Oh my gosh. Come on, Jimmy. What a player he is. He's a spectacular player. Come on. He's not the first young guy that's been on a bad team, and he won't be the last young guy. And there's a reason why those guys go number one, because
they're going to a bad team.
The lottery. They've been on bad teams. Yep. Go look at Mario Lemieux, got drafted in 1984, and go look at how long it took for him to have success. Didn't have it until 1991.
That's amazing.
Think about it.
All right. Well said there, Pierre. And thank you to our great guest, Dave Randorf. Good suggestion by you, Pierre. He was unbelievable.
Rambo's great. He's such a good person. You know, that's the one thing on the eye test I can just tell you, and Jimmy knows, like, we talk about, I'm a hard marker.
Yeah.
We're just not going to have guys on that aren't the way we see things. That's just how we're going to leave it like that.
Great stuff. And of course, thanks to our producer, Shane, up in Montreal. Hopefully I'll bump into you this weekend, Shane. I'll be up there this weekend. Pierre and I are going to be two ships passing in a night. He's going back to Boston. I'll be coming up, but hopefully we'll find time to get together, Pierre, while we're up there. And thanks to you, the viewers and the listeners. We appreciate your support and all your questions. And until tomorrow, this has been another edition of the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.